Hey, welcome to the podcast, Ramon.
Thank you, Asher. How you doing, man?
Pretty good yourself.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds good.
For anyone who doesn't know you, who do you say you are?
Mm, that's an interesting question. Hmm. Family man, definitely. Ultimately, family. Devoted husband. Still a working in progress. Um, Working on my Christianity, but and I'm working on it diligently. Um, and just working, trying to make the world know me as not just one thing, but several things, not just a creator, but somebody who loves life, somebody who is excited about the future, who wants to make people happy, who loves people in general. I think that is probably a summary of me.
I like it. And tell me a little bit about where you started. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Jamaica, in uh, in the capital, Kingston,
Mhm.
Kingston, Jamaica. That's where I was born. Um, you know, I think my life has taken me in a lot of genres. Sometimes, some parts I don't even I didn't I was too small to recognize.
Mm.
Um, but when my parents tell me, "Oh, we used to live up there," I'm like, "Whoa, we used to live on that hill."
Mm.
Okay, cool. Um, we moved a lot. I remember that.
Mm.
Um, and it was because my father was in college at the time. So I remember staying a lot with my grandparents. I remember driving in I like cars.
Yeah.
So I remember cars distinctly. So I remember driving in his red Celica.
Mm.
It's probably, let me see now, probably 19, I would say 70 something.
Mm.
Well, it was a two-door coupe, red Silica. I remember them dropping me to my grandparents and then, picking me back up in the evening, stuff like me and my brother, you
Yeah.
know. So I spent a lot of times with my grandparents and my aunt.
Mm.
Uh, and that was really city life, so to speak, because Kingston is the capital.
Mhm.
So you're gonna have city life.
Right.
And then I remember that my father decided that he wanted to go back to school. And so it was a back and forth. So we decided that, hey, instead of going back and forth, let's just go where he is. And that was, I would say, the country. So it
Mhm.
was a school on top of a hill in the country of Mandeville. So just totally different from what I was used to.
Mm.
It was much, Kingston is very hot because it's
Yeah.
flat. And Mandeville is very hilly, so it's
Mm.
very cold. So it was like one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
And getting to know the people and people understanding me because the funny thing about Jamaica, as much as we speak basic, we speak English,
Mhm.
then you have the broken English, but each broken English, which is patois,
Mhm.
um, it's different from parish to parish.
Mm.
So Kingstonians, which that's the capital, would speak a little bit more. And I hope I don't get beat for this. We speak a little bit more standard English
Mhm.
because hey, we're the business capital of Kingston, and so here is it that I'm moved to the country where these people speak fast, and I'm like, huh? Repeat, because they were talking so fast. And so it was very interesting trying to hear them, trying to understand them, just but I love the country actually.
Mm,
I actually did, I met up close friends down there. Um, it was much more freedom. In Kingston, you stay indoors, so to speak. You don't really, you play in your area, but here's it now that you can just go out and have fun with your friends and come back before it gets dark, you know. So, and my parents, my mother at the time didn't mind it, you should just say, how long you come back before it get dark? We're good. And so it was quite interesting, quite interesting.
what was one of the main things you liked about the country versus the city, or vice versa?
I would say one, the weather.
Hmm.
Contrary to belief that, you get used to the heat. You don't really, I mean, I don't know, maybe because of my skin tone, I get hot quite easily.
Yeah.
So, I really and truly prefer the cool.
Mm,
I rather get warm than get cool. You know,
mm,
that was one of the freedoms, just, having the weather change.
yeah.
Incidentally, and I should just point out, I had asthma for years.
Hmm.
And living in Kingston, I used to frequent the hospital because heat tends to trigger my asthma. It's one
Mm,
of the triggers. So when I get extremely hot, then it starts a process and it's a snowball effect from there.
right.
So now when I moved to Mandeville, it was so different. I never had an asthma attack.
Mm,
And so actually I did. I actually had one. And it was because they were fixing the road and dust and stuff.
yeah.
But other than that, I didn't have any asthma attack for a year. Up to this day, I have not since I moved to Mandeville and you know, grown up, I've never had an asthma attack since then. So I think that was one of the turning point which I appreciate to
Mm,
move to the country.
right.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's awesome. It's funny when you mention moving to the country and having heels in Jamaica. I've only visited Jamaica once, but I'd never associated the cold with Jamaica. I've always thought beach. Like I went there, I'd visited a resort, which is different from the
Mhm.
mainland and everything like that. But it's neat to see that and kind of learn a little bit about the geography just from those two different cities.
Mhm. I and I can tell you this, that's Mandeville is not even one of the coldest places in Jamaica. Um, Years ago, I did a hike
Mm-hmm.
to the where was it? I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Blue Mountain, and
Mm-hmm.
I went to the peak, and this is like the highest peak in the land, and man, that was cold.
Mm-hmm.
You literally see ice on the ground.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, a lot of things that people don't know. Everybody associates. Yes, it is very hot. And
Right.
don't get me wrong, you will melt.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, there's still good places where, and I think the heat in Jamaica too is you can still go outside under a tree,
Mm-hmm.
the breeze is blowing, and you feel real good still.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Do you still go back and visit?
I am planning to go. I'm working that logistics out for this year because I
Gotcha.
got invited to friend's wedding.
Nice.
And not only that, but that's not the only major reason, but just to go back and visit my parents and stuff like that.
Mm.
My wife she's itching to go back. If I tell her, I say, hey, just go, 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 leave. You can leave me. I won't accept. But she doesn't. Everybody's a go. So it's just what it is. We'll just have to wait and see.
Gotcha. So did you spend most of your life in Jamaica?
Yes, yes, yes. The funny thing, I the first time, no, my brother went to university in Cuba at one point,
Mm.
and they needed to send some stuff for him. And if you understand the logistics of Cuba, it's not as easy just to get up and send a package and it reaches. You know,
Mm.
sometimes it's best to just actually carry the thing, what you want, to
Mhm.
the person because of how over there is set up. And so my parents decided that, hey, you go. And that was the first time I went on a plane
Mm.
and I went to Cuba, which was very interesting. And I think I will go back again. Truth be told, it
Mhm.
was a very nice experience. Not what you expected.
Mm.
You hear these things about Cuba and this and that, and then when you go, you're like, okay, this is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then in certain respects, not
Mhm.
all, but certain respects, a lot of the environment of Cuba just reminds me a little bit about Jamaica.
Gotcha.
Although you will see difference in terms of the infrastructure, like the roads and like you see some very large statues, stuff like
Mm.
that. Mhm,
Is
mhm.
it, would you say Cuba's more developed than Jamaica, or how would you describe the two?
I wouldn't say that. There are pros and cons to both, if you
Gotcha.
understand. But I think Jamaica is way more developed
Mm.
than Cuba. You know, because Cuba, although in terms of tourism, I think Cuba will give Jamaica a run for the money,
Mm.
um, just because of how nice stuff are over there.
Right.
Uh, but and then it's just because, and I think now it is open up more people who have always heard about Cuba would probably want to go to Cuba over Jamaica, but I'm gonna still be biased for my country, obviously.
Right. Right.
But but infrastructure wise, there is like their roads are way better than ours in
Mm.
certain respects. They have much wider roads,
Mhm.
cleaner roads because obviously because of their whole regime of, communism. I don't know what it is now, but when I was there, it was, you know, it was such a nice road. I mean, I'm like, whoa, you know, 3 lanes. I mean, each side. I'm like, what? What's going on here? So yeah. But, in terms of probably overall businesses and stuff like that, Jamaica is way more developed. Mhm.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So I guess with how you grew up in Jamaica, like how did you carry on with your friends group?
I didn't get that one. Repeat that.
Like what was growing up in Jamaica like? Like how did you transition from like you mentioned going from the city to the country where your dad was because he decided to go back to school. As you're
Mhm.
growing up during this time, what are your friends like? Like who are you hanging out with? Where are you spending a lot of your time?
Oh, back then or now?
Back then.
Well, all right. So, um, we were in this particular community where most of the persons who were there went to
Mhm.
the same school as I.
Mm.
And so, you interact with them at school and you
Mhm.
interact with them when you get home
Yeah.
and, stuff like that. So it was, one of those you learn to appreciate, there are good and bad to it.
Mhm.
You had some like any group of people you're gonna bump heads with them at some point in time.
Yeah.
But overall they were pretty nice persons, they looked out for you. I think it was so different. I mean, you go and play with these guys and do stuff with you, go hiking with them.
Mhm.
Um, when lunchtime is around, the parents would say, "Hey, come have a sandwich or have a drink."
Mhm.
It was so different. You stayed outside and hung out for a bit with them. Um, it was, and I think that was so nice. And I sometimes I wish that for my own kids, what
Mhm.
I experienced.
Right.
because they're not experiencing that right now. If they go out on the road, I'm gonna fret.
Mhm.
So, I don't even want them to go to the front of the yard.
Mm.
I would say, hey, listen, you guys can play at the back as much as you want, but don't
Yeah.
go to the front. So yeah, so it's just what it is, it's just there was such a level of freedom and you didn't worry about certain things.
Mm.
If you need so, and even if you didn't get something to eat at their house, you can just run, hey, yeah, so be back, run, go back home, get something to eat, drink something, say mommy later, I'm gone. You back out again, and that was it. And as I said to you before, we did hikes, we did a lot of hiking because
Mm.
is it that there were it was very hilly, and they had a lot of tracks, and we just went and explored. Like a
Mm.
group of 5 or 6 of us just went in the bush and go up and come. We didn't, and we just had to use our nose. Are we going the right place?
Yeah.
You know, um, you know, yeah, are we going in circles or whatever the situation is? And then, we come back home, and that was such a cool experience. Just doing that and not have to worry about anybody troubling us, anybody bothering us. And
Mhm.
I saw a bunch of stuff, right? I remember this was the first time I ever saw an owl close
Mm.
up,
Mm.
you know, and you see this little rock with a hole in it, and you look inside, you see this thing looking at you, and you see around it skeletons of rats.
Mhm.
You're like, this is nature.
Yeah.
So, and that was one of the things up to this day, I still love nature.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, I like to go places and just see something new. I
Mm.
like this type of things. Yeah.
Gotcha. And the kids that you grew up with, the friends you grew up with, did you still maintain relationships to them with them today?
Um, Not all of them. There's one I still speak to, but
Mhm.
one or two. Yeah, probably two I still speak to. You know, that's I think that's it, because what happened, I should interject and put this in.
Mhm.
When I started high school, I did high school in Mandeville,
Mhm.
and then my my parents decided that they were going away
Mhm.
to a different country. And so I had to leave Mandeville
Mhm.
and go back to Kingston.
Mhm.
And so I left them and they went to a different school.
Mhm.
So it's like I had to do that whole dynamics over again.
Mhm.
And it's amazing that I still have one and two persons who I can, say, hey, what's up? You
Yeah.
know, from that environment, because
Right.
I made newer friends after that
Mhm.
in Kingston. So, and then that's where and I think when it comes to friends,
Mhm.
they I wouldn't say I have a lot.
Mhm.
I have just a very small circle
Yeah.
where I say, hey, I can call them at any given time.
Mhm.
And that's it. Um,
Right.
I know a lot of persons,
Mhm.
but I guess that is how far it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I like that because I think recently I heard someone tell a story of a proverb that their grandmother told them where they were saying that using their hand.
Oh, I did. I saw
You
it.
seen that? And it was like I was like, wow, that is so true. If you have three, I think they said, imagine that you're your thumb, and then
Mm.
however many fingers you can cover with your thumb is what you want to be able to do, to where so long as you have two or three people that you can cover. I don't know if my thumb stretches out to four, but if you can cover
Yeah, I
two
don't
or
think
three
mine
people in
is
your
so
life,
quickly.
and
Yeah.
then if three or so people can cover you, that's really the bonds that you look to make, and the what it is that you look to have in this world. Because I mean, we meet a lot of people, I'm sure, I've met thousands at this point, if not tens of thousands. But
Mm.
like being able to have someone that you can call up or someone that can call upon you and that you can be there for them and vice versa. It's a beautiful thing.
Definitely, definitely. I try growing that. I try to tell my kids about that also. To hey, just not everybody's your friend. Don't
Yeah.
say that. Quick to say that. Yeah, I mean the word friend is such a loose term sometimes.
Hmm.
You want to say, oh yeah, that's my friend, but really it's something that you need to, kind of figure out properly. So
Yeah.
just because not everybody is your friend.
Right.
And I think and even with this social media situation, you have friends,
Yeah.
so many friends, but how many of them, if you call them right now, is gonna answer you?
Hmm.
You know, is that you can have 1,000 of them, even 10,000 of them,
Yeah.
don't know one of them. So it's key. It's a key factor, you know.
Right.
And I try to be the best friend I can be.
Hmm.
Um, do I mess up sometimes? Of course I do. Do I, I've lost close friends to this day, but and when I say lose them is not I have had one, well, let me backtrack.
Hmm.
When I've lost one major friend, I can say, which was my best friend for years.
Hmm.
He died, and that was very impactful on me. Just thinking about, how I lost him. Lost him to cancer, and it was one of those devastating situations, which
Hmm.
maybe I don't know if I'll get over it, but you have to just take it one step at a time. And
Hmm.
then you have friends who you try to be their friends, and be there for them, and some misunderstanding, and it just never go back, you know.
Hmm.
And you wonder what's up with that. And then you do have the friends who you see every day,
Hmm.
and you know, in school and stuff like that. And then when you leave, that's it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like a plant, like a tree.
Hmm.
You you have to know, at some point in time the leaves are gonna shed. It's just and it's not a bad thing too,
Yeah.
you know, but the leaves always grow back. That's the good thing, you know. You just have to kind of say, hey, whatever leaf stuck, because
Hmm.
when it dry up and
Yeah.
then get back green,
Hmm.
that is one of the friends that you can't afford to leave.
Yeah.
But there are some leaves that's just gonna drop off, and then you grow new leaves, and you have new experiences. Um, because I I would say that I had a tons of friends
Hmm.
in Jamaica. You know, Sometimes my wife would say that we can't go one place without somebody saying hello. And when I came to the US, you know, it felt lonely for a while,
Hmm.
quite a while, because all of those persons who they
Hmm.
weren't there anymore, you know,
Hmm.
and so you had to now adjust, and
Right.
you had to now figure out, and then you hear so many things about, you know, when you go to the US, you have to be careful, watch out for people. You hear all these things. And I don't know. Probably
Hmm.
you tell me. I don't know. You being someone who is not from the US also. Have you
Hmm.
heard that too?
Um,
What point? I mean,
in which way? Can you
things
ask it
like
again?
you have to be careful in terms of your selection of your friends. You have to be careful of who you interact with. you hear these little things.
Yeah, I think maybe for me it might be different because I came to the US at age 7, so it's like
Oh, well, yeah, yeah, yeah,
most
yeah.
of my life I've grown up in the US, and I think I've learned a lot of things through being naive and not not necessarily knowing what to expect. It's like you grow up kind of friendly, like being a foreigner, or I guess for you, it seems like you grew up with like a tight knit community. Like what you know now about having few friends and close friends, like everyone not being your friend, is that something that you learned growing up, or is that something that you've learned more so in your adult life?
I've learned that more so in my adult life.
Mm,
Um, because environments are different everywhere you go.
right.
Culture is different.
Hmm.
Um, Jamaican culture is very friendly.
Hmm.
You don't have to know the person before they say good morning.
Right.
You don't have to know the person to say, hey, how you doing?
Hmm.
And you know, even even the older culture of Jamaica, if you're a young child walking on the road and you don't say hello or hello, sir, it's like the mom must have the permission to give you a slap and say, hey, you have to have manners.
Right. Right.
And you can run home and tell you, and when you tell your parents what happened,
Mm.
they might turn on and give you a slap too. Why you didn't tell them good morning?
Right.
That is the type of environment Jamaica is.
Yeah.
And that's the type I grew up into.
Mm.
Oh, I don't know if it's the same right now.
Yeah.
Coming over to here, where you are walking on the road and you want to say, "Oh, hi," and then turn ahead and walk straight,
Mm.
or look the other way, or don't do it. It tends to feel you feel out of place.
Yeah.
I saw something on the internet. I think it was even last night or the day before, where
Mhm.
a Caribbean comedian was saying that she longs for the day when she can say good night and
Mm.
it is understood. Because US, somebody saying good night, you mean that you're going to your bed, right?
Right. Right.
But in the Caribbean, when you say good night, it's almost like saying good morning.
Right.
It's
It's
it's it's,
another greeting.
it's another greeting. It's like good afternoon.
Mhm.
But when it's nighttime, you say good night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you're going to your bed. It's just
Yeah.
respect, good night. And you can't do that in the US.
Mm. People kind of look at you strange. They're like,
Like,
what are you
okay,
talking
why are you
about?
telling me good night? Why are you telling me you're going to your bed right now? So yeah, so it's just culturally different, and
Right.
culturally I had to figure it out. I had to, change my whole mindset about a lot of stuff when I got here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think something that's interesting about the US is that at the same time that it provides a lot of opportunity, I think it almost it takes something as a trade-off from the people at the same time that it gives you opportunity, but it requires a lot for the opportunities that it may provide. And at times it's almost like I don't know if it was different before the world wars came about and things went into this hyper production mode, or if that's just how the world works in a way where when you kind of like read the Bible, and I guess the way it was explained to me recently through doing a study was that the way that the Bible is written, how it starts like in the beginning, God, is that it starts with a poem that goes from Genesis chapter 1 to the first verse of Genesis chapter 2. And it's like this poem that's being told to a people that are coming out of slavery, out of the time of Moses, out of the yeah, this brick making season where it's like they've been slaves for hundreds of years. I don't know if it's 400 years, kind of similar to the American, African American, or the Black American story where it's like same 400 years of slavery, where it's you have this abuse that you've been kind of put through the ringer. And during the season, it seems like here within the last couple of years, this year's an election year, but like since the pandemic, people have been trying to be more, I don't know if it's conscious, some people would say woke, like socially, culturally, people are trying to express more about things holistically about history to say, okay, you have American history is a combination of like you have Black history, you have European history, you have Native American history, you have everything that comes into it, which is this big melting pot, and it's part of the dream that everyone looks to come to America to have a piece of. Like some people now, it might be the Latin American or the Mexican Americans that are doing a lot of the labor work, which they may get cheap pay or be able to go into real estate to say, okay, hey, I'm going to live with three, four, eight of my family members in one home. It might not look appealing to the outside world, but it's like, hey, we're going to stay together as a cohesive unit. You work that job, I work this job. We all bring our money together and then we make that run. So it's like on the outside, someone that's been in America longer would be like, yeah, I'm above that. Or I've put in so much time to where it's like you can't justify paying me pennies for the profits that you're going to make. But somebody else that's come from less, they're like, well, what you're offering is more than my less, so I'm willing to take that. So it's kind of weird where it's like we meet people where they're at now, but we don't necessarily know where they came from. So it's on the one hand, it's like people are maybe not as friendly or not as community driven because it's almost like the environment that they've been in has conditioned them to be individualistic. Like that's the thing with America where um it's like the beauty that's kind of sold to you in the dream of like you want to be a star, you want to make it to Hollywood, you want to get in the music industry, but like as we start to see more and more, it's like a lot of these things that were painted as beautiful, they're not as pretty as they look. Like people that are on TV, they're on the networks and the shows, and then you start hearing what they had to do to get to those positions, what they have to do to um, be even considered. It's like, man, if that if that's what it takes to live those kind of dreams, I don't know
Yeah.
if I should keep dreaming or if I should like look
Yeah,
somewhere else.
that's
But that
so
that's
true.
been kind of like my that's been maybe my reflections on the past year or maybe the start of this year, even looking at like a video that Cat Williams did with Shannon Sharp and seeing how eye-opening it is, how someone's is a very good storyteller, but at the same time in telling the story, it's like you have truths that come in there and they're presented in such a way to where you can either go down the rabbit hole and keep trying to fact find, you can deny, or you could be open to the possibility of saying, okay, well, maybe there is some truth in what's said here, and I can take it for myself and see where I can apply it, or just look at it as like, oh, that's nice, kind of go back to your life, business as usual type thing.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, and you know, sometimes I think about my own just living in
Mm,
the US compared to living in Jamaica. You know, there are many pros and cons to it.
mhm,
You know, um, the pros to it is that hey, the yeah, there's a hustle there.
mhm,
There is a there is something there where you need to achieve certain things and you need to get it done, and it can be high paced because it is,
mm.
you know, but also there's still a level of homeness to it.
You said a
After
wholeness?
homeness. After you finish the hustle and you go home and you
Mm,
relax, and you can say, hey, let's go somewhere this weekend.
mm,
Let's go look for your grandparents. Let's go look for your friends.
Mm.
It's different, you know.
Yeah.
Um, it's different to the point where, like now, when you come from the hustle here,
Hmm.
there's, yeah, you still can jump in the car and drive with someone, but it's different.
Yeah.
The unwinding is kind of different because your mind is still running. What's gonna happen?
Mm.
Or, you know, you can't stop work, or be without work because you're gonna just what's gonna happen if you get sick
Right.
or things like that.
Yeah.
Like for myself, my family and I, we don't have many families
Mm.
around us.
Right.
So it's not a situation where even if we wanted to do something, I can say, all right, you go stay with grandparents for today
Hmm.
till we come back.
Yeah.
A whole different complex situation. So, sometimes just what you said, you had this dream about being successful, and then when you're in it, you're wondering, but you still have
Yeah.
to continue because you're here now. You can't roll over and play dead.
Yeah.
You know? So I, you know, if I can just bring in this part, just
Of
even
course.
my creative side of me, where I draw and do portraits. Um, Sometimes you do these spectacular things and you're like, whoa.
Mm.
And but you want it to be just more than just that. You want it to have these more impactful meaning. And then sometimes it will do it.
Hmm.
And then sometimes it will put you in a state that you'll just hear silence.
Mm.
And you wonder, okay, what's happening? And why am I not hearing anything? You
Mm.
know, so I think until I reach that point, you know, I tend to use my art more to be that, what's the word? As a ministry, so to speak.
Mm.
So when somebody's going through something,
Hmm.
I do a drawing of them and say, hey, and that drawing will give them a little bit of, something to smile about,
Mm.
something to say, oh, this is so nice. And wherever they put it, then they walk, they're gonna remember that they got that because of something.
Mm.
Um, it could be starting off a healing process. You
Mm.
lose somebody and you decide to do it. I decide to just give you a piece of your parent who died.
Mm.
It's might not be the hard, it can be hard, you
Mm.
know, but more and more you put it somewhere and you will smile every time you pass it. It's not going to bring a bad memory, it's just going to bring a smile to your face to remember that person,
Yeah.
So I am sometimes, it started out of a need,
Hmm.
but it's evolving in something more than just a need. It's evolving in something that I want to present to the world that, hey, you know, put a smile on your face.
Yeah.
You know, I recently did something for somebody and I didn't know, I seriously didn't know she was gonna cry. I just really did it. And, she was here. Um, and somebody I used to interact with in Jamaica, and we did a lot of business together. And
Hmm.
he was nearby, and I said, "Hey, you know what? Since I'm gonna look for you, I'm just gonna do this portrait for you."
Mm.
And I seriously didn't realize that it would impact her that much when she got it.
Yeah.
You know, she wiped tears, and I was like, "Whoa!" And then, I kind of realized that, okay, okay, we're going somewhere with this. So I
Yeah,
don't want to interject that.
I like that because you just reminded me of why I don't have much artwork as you can see from my background. And it's like I've moved quite a bit with work. But there's this one painting, a good friend of mine from high school. I guess it's another one of those where it's like you just call people friends, but it's like she was always kind to me. We ran track together, track and field, and she did like the long distance running. And I've I've learned to appreciate art because drawing, for example, is not something that I've done well in. But I remember it was in college, and I think she was trying to raise some money over the college break, and I was kind of proud of myself that I could work. I think it was maybe that summer I worked my first semester, like 2011, like that, for a co-op. So it's like I made enough money to where I could pay for the next semester of school, and I always like supporting friends or other people's ventures to kind of shine a light on what they're doing. So I have a painting
Mm,
from, I think she signed it in like 2011. And every time that I look at it, I'm like, I don't have much in the art department, so to speak, but every time I look at it, I always appreciate the amount of detail that she put into it
mm,
because to her maybe or to you the same it may or it may not take a lot of time, but it's just like the skill that went into making it and looking at it and just being like, wow, it's been maybe 13 years at this point and I can still look at it and say that still looks good. Like I remember seeing it on Facebook. It was like, hey, I made some paintings, made some drawings out of like color pencil, and if you'd want one, this is the price, just maybe like 10, 20 bucks I think at the time. And it's like, wow, you really did that. And I was like, yeah, I'll take one. It's like, are you sure? And it's like, yeah, yeah, I like it. And it's funny, it's like I still like it to this point.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, you see, uh, I know sometimes there are persons out there who just make art for just a commercial situation.
Hmm.
And, even with AI right now,
Yeah.
I've heard somebody said, I was discussing with somebody once who he said a friend of his just tell AI what to do, and then he's selling so much money for these things. And I'm like, well, that's not art. But
Mm.
he's saying, yeah, the keyboard is his brush. And I'm like, no, 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 because the time you sit down and do a piece,
Mm.
the time you take to cut out the paper,
Hmm.
place it on the easel, and then you start. And in starting, you might see that it's going okay,
Hmm.
and you realize it's off. And then you rip it up and start again,
Yeah.
you know. And then, you know, it's one of those times when you can get lost in it
Hmm.
as you are looking on details. You're trying to look on pick up everything on that thing that
Mm.
pertaining to the art, especially if it's a face,
Yeah.
because takes little things to make details of
Mm.
you. You know, it's not just because you wear glasses and you have a goatee and you have a bald head. It's more than that.
Right.
Is how your eyes are cut, how is your nose is set up, and the details of your shape of your nose and your lips, and so it can take a while, and I don't think many persons understand the time it takes to do it,
Mm.
because it can sometimes, if you don't stop yourself, it can go on,
Mm.
because I saw a quote once that said that an artwork is finished when the artist puts down the pencil. It doesn't necessarily, it can be finished in your eyes, but not in the artist's eyes. It can be finished because there are so many drawings I've done
Hmm.
where I finish it, put it down, then like years after, I go back and I start it again.
Mm.
I see some details on it where you could do something different.
Yeah,
So, it's always one of those stuff, I guess.
gotcha. Are you
Because
familiar with Michelangelo?
yes. Mhm,
Gotcha. I didn't know the extent of his story until I started listening to a book called 10x is easier than 2x.
mhm.
And it, just in the introduction, before they even get to the first chapter, they talk about what he decided to do to perfect his art in order to do like the David, the statue of Mary and Jesus, all of this before he even got to like painting the Sixtine Chapel. Because I'd always heard of people talking about Michelangelo Sixtine Chapel or Michelangelo, one of the Mutant Ninja Turtles. But it's like actually hearing the story in detail of like how he went to study like human anatomy and practice dissecting on cadavers and bodies, wanting to know what is going on inside the body before cutting on a piece of marble and being like, okay, in order for me to make the David, the infamous statue, it's like basically cutting away everything that's not that final finished product. I was like, wow, like I didn't realize that much went into that form of art or just art in general when someone really sets their mind to just doing that one thing and really becomes like engrossed in it and enamored by it.
I think that just by you saying that, because art is one of those things that you do, which many the untrained eyes, the person who is looking doesn't understand the science behind it
Mm,
because there is.
mm,
Um, Certain art can you can get away by doing certain things, but there's certain things that you can like the type I do,
mm.
you can't get away with certain things. You can't get away with your eye up here and your eye down here. It's gonna, it's just not going to. They're gonna say, "Hey, you don't know what you're doing."
Mm,
I've always said to persons that we're so fearfully and wonderfully made. When you think about God, He must have been an artist
mhm,
to pinpoint certain things because just like the tip of your nose
mm.
is lined up with the tip of your ears.
Oh wow, yeah,
Your eyebrow is lined up with the top of your ear.
wow.
You know, when things like the pupil in your eye,
Mhm,
when depends on where you're looking. If I looking straight ahead, and if you put a line from that part, it's gonna line up with the corner of your mouth. You know, things like that.
yeah,
It had to be thought out in such a way. It just didn't come about just so.
right.
And it's so funny that when you study just studying art, you have to study the human body to understand so many things. You
Mm,
know, um, you do have certain times when it might be a little bit off,
mm,
but the principles are still the same. And sometimes when people, when you see an artist out there and they do their stuff, and you might hear, oh, I want, just for argument's sake, I want this amount of money. You can't really get too upset with them. You're like, nah, I would never, fine, that's you, but that
Hmm.
was never for you.
Right.
Because there's so many things involved. I think, was it Michael? I think it was Da Vinci, was it? They had a series on the TV about his life,
Mm.
what he had to go through back then just to be able to paint and do his art. They had to go through a lot.
Yeah.
It wasn't just I just get up and get a piece of paper. Paint was such a scarce commodity. Now you can just go to the any Michaels and get it.
Right.
It was such a thing just to even have a model at the time. It was so many different variables to it. That's why it makes it so expensive. You
Mm.
know, I I want to initially make the type of art that, when I do go, it's gonna worth a lot of money at some point in time.
Mm.
I just don't want it to be, oh, I can draw.
Mm.
I want it to be more impactful than just I can draw, you
Mm.
know. So I'm working towards that right now. I'm working towards getting every day I'm learning something
Yeah.
because I'm not there yet.
Right. Right. I guess what got you on this journey of art? Like, were you always talented at drawing, or like how did you start?
I started from I was very small. My parents would always give me crayons and stuff like that,
Mm.
paper, and I'll always try and draw something and, children art. When I think about it, I just imagine, them laughing at it, but saying that's really nice. But it wasn't as impressive.
Mm.
And I I would call myself self-taught
Mhm.
because there was, you know, when I was in class, supposed to be listening, my book was full of drawings and doodlings, and I constantly drew. And I remember that the school had some exams to do with art and the classes.
Mhm.
And I remember the teacher was saying to me, she said she told the class to draw something and don't go ahead because we don't reach that point yet. But I was like, oops, sorry, I went ahead. And she was about to get upset and like, let me see the paper. Why did you go ahead and start the shading? And she goes, oh. And she looks in amaze, like everything that she was about to do or say just stopped.
Mm.
And that is when she started to say, you have something here. And, I, you you know, unfortunately, I think, life, the way how, Jamaica is,
Mhm.
an artist is like you have to be a older person, established person to be an artist, so to speak.
Mm.
Because you would have, I don't know if you ever heard about Barrington Watson, very famous Jamaican artist,
Mm.
international artist too. And I used to look at him and he didn't go to school in Jamaica. He went to, I think it was England, and studied art. And I wanted to be just like him.
Mhm.
The freedom of, just painting and making a lot of money from it. But for some reason, I think my mother didn't see it that way. She said, hey, you know, do something where you is more stable.
Right.
So I went into computers, um, and then I went into graphic designing for
Mhm.
years. And I think I was still drawing, but not to the where I'm at right now,
Hmm.
far from it. And there was a couple of times I said, "Hey, let me start back my drawing." And I started to do a couple of pieces. And I remember my brother introduced me to somebody was I think he was the president of the Kiwanis Club, and said, "Hey, we always have this art auction.
Hmm.
We'd love to have some of your pieces." I'm like, pieces? I mean, that's all right, cool. Let me just do one or two. No
Hmm.
problem. I got them framed, and I remember giving the guy who was running the auction, he looked on them and he's like looking at them strange and like, "You really want to auction this?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, I don't know if these gonna sell."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Whatever it is. I mean, hey, if it sell, it sell. If it don't sell."
Right.
Asha, I'm gonna tell you this. There was a bidding war over all my pieces. No joke. Bidding war to the point that one of the ladies who wanted the pieces looked on it and said, "You know what? I'm not gonna argue. I'm not gonna try and outbid these persons. I'm just gonna call the artist himself and then get these pieces." And she called and she bought like four of them
Mm.
from me. And not to mention what I got from the art auction because everything sold off.
Wow.
And so, and this was closer to when I was about to get over here. This is like a couple years before that. And then, I was people will come to me, "Can you do a drawing for me?" And there's even on Instagram, there's a reel I did the other day of one art piece I did for a lady.
Hmm.
And where she was lying on her bed, I'm showing her back. And I remember doing that. And I think at that time I got about probably less than $12,000, Jamaican dollars, that is,
Hmm.
um, for that piece. And I think the frame probably even cost more than the art piece. And I remember doing it and I felt so good about it.
Hmm.
And then I remember seeing that piece and I said, but looking back at what I did then,
Hmm.
oh man, it was rough. So I did it over and I got such a reaction of the one I did over of the same piece. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I've grown. I've grown. And but even before I did that, when I got to America,
Hmm.
not having a job, trying to figure out what to do. I was saying, I wonder if I can use my art and make. So I sat down and figured it out and say, let me start drawing portraits.
Hmm.
Uh, still rough on how I did it. Sometimes when you start off as a portrait artist, you do some stuff. When you look back at it, the eyes are really big, and you
Hmm.
and you're like, whoa, look where I'm coming from.
Hmm.
And it started just like that. It started from the start, saying, "Hey, I need to do something for myself.
Yeah.
I need to figure this thing out for myself." And even just listening to people, one of my biggest persons who I listened to was Eric Thomas.
Yeah.
And so, I was just gobbling a part of his stuff. It was kind of pushing me through,
Yeah.
one of those rough times because not having a job, coming from a situation where you're working constantly to now not working, it
Hmm.
can be rough. And so I remember he listening to one of his stuff and he said, "I'm gonna put on a number and you guys call it, call it for, men support." So I'm trying to figure out what was he speaking about. So I
Hmm.
wrote it down and
Yeah.
I called the number and he said it was call at this time. Okay, I think he said he was gonna be on it.
Yeah.
So I called and I didn't hear anybody and I hung up. I was like, okay. And then I called again, and
Mhm.
then heard some people speaking. I'm like, okay, am I gonna hear Eric Thomas? Because hey,
Yeah.
this was my goal. And then I realized now this was um the Pearl line.
Mhm.
And so it started like it started also with that
Mhm.
and speaking to the BK, the host, and understanding what was the prayer line about.
Right.
And then now when the men's conference came to Atlanta,
Mhm.
I was like, I have to be there.
Right.
But I just didn't want to just be there just for being there sake. I wanted to meet Eric Thomas. Now, how am I going to meet him? All
Mhm.
right. So I'm saying, all right, cool. Let's figure this out. Let's strategically figure this thing out.
Mhm.
So the line is connected to Eric Thomas,
Mhm.
and the host is connected to Eric Thomas.
Mhm.
So one day I just got up and said, I'm going to do a drawing of the host. So I found his picture,
Mhm.
and I drew it, and I sent it to him, and he was blown away.
Wow.
It's like, okay, cool. And then he started to tell everybody about me, and I'm like, okay. Then here's the main conference coming up.
Mhm.
Why not do a drawing of Eric Thomas? And this was a time when he lost his grandmother. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, this is an ideal. I'm saying to myself now, yeah, everybody wants to see him, but everybody who wants to see him is gonna give him a gift.
Mhm.
Maybe I need to stand out that way. So I
Mhm.
did the drawing, and I did the drawing under. I wasn't 100% in terms of feeling well,
Mhm.
but I said I have to do it. This could start something. This
Mhm.
could spark something. And I did it, and I got them framed. And I remember distinctly, I wasn't 100%. I think I had the flu. And when you have like cold or flu at them time, everybody thinks it's COVID. So this is the time around COVID. So everything with anything sneezing was,
Right.
and I said, but I have to get there, and I I tried to feel better. And I remember even like the Thursday or Friday night, I was so sick.
Mhm.
I said, boy, I said, God, I really need to go to this thing. I really need to go. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I just need to go.
Right.
And I remember even the Saturday morning getting up, I was like, man, I still don't feel well. I'm just going to forfeit. I said, no, 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 no. I'm gonna push. And then I started to feel better, and I started to get my strength back, and make sure I have on my mask. And I said, hey, I don't want to get this man of God sick. And
Mhm.
just did what I had to do. And then I went there, and met BK for the first time. And
Mhm.
I gave him his, and he was like, whoa, this is so cool. And he goes, hey, come, come, come. We're going to meet Eric Thomas right now. Walk with me. And
Mhm.
he walked the girl to the back and stopped the security guard, and he said, hey, blah, 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 blah. I said, stay here, Ramon. And then they carried it around, and then I won't forget it, man. All I heard was Eric Thomas in his very, you know, high strong way.
Mhm.
Call out your name like you mean it. And he's like, but I couldn't, because guess what? I was still, not 100%.
Mhm.
It's like, oh yeah, hi. And that's me. And he asked me where I'm from. I told him, and he said, this is really good. And he said, hey, we need to take a picture together. And they gave him, took a picture, and it was something, you
Yeah.
know. And I looking back at it, and I said, hey, my talent brought me rooms to meet great men,
Mhm.
you know. And that's where I'm still pushing, not just looking on the monetary part of it, but
Mhm.
look on the impactful part of my talent. That's
Yeah.
where I want, that's what I want to do, be more impactful to people. Because I mean, I'm sure the money part will come, and even if it doesn't come, hey,
Mhm.
that's just life. But I need to be impactful.
Yeah.
That's my goal. That's my
I like that. It's interesting when I think back to how I met you or how I heard of you, because like jumping on the prayer line and, like you say, being a men's support group and hearing the different voices on there. Sometimes it's what I've gone through. I think in the past couple of years, or I joined it around 2016, 2017. So it was pre-pandemic. And then around like 2018, 2019, it just felt like we were talking about before the call, just sometimes you get a lot of life happen happen at one time,
yeah,
and the line always seems like a good place to tap into to share with the brotherhood, where it's like you have people that you can lean on, or you kind of learn to trust men. And one book that I read called No More Mr. Nice Guy, it talks about breaking this nice guy syndrome, where it's you do a lot of things that kind of make you into a shell of yourself. And what the book encourages you to do over 50 or so steps, chapter by chapter, is first getting around a trusted group of men, and also like seeking out therapy, like being able to do those things um together, like one with the other, like having 1 to 3 people that you can count on and be like, okay, this is a safe person that I can be honest with. I guess sometimes on the line people would say you got to get butt booty naked, just like be yourself in your birthday suit and just express what's on your heart without feeling the, how am I going to be perceived, how am I going to be received, am I going to be judged, misjudged, categorized, put in a box, and just kind of done away with, to where it's, I see myself as a leper, or maybe people are going to avoid me now because I admitted to this or admitted to that. And being able to kind of come from that environment and spending the time that I spent there, like hearing your voice from time to time. And I think at times it would be um, trying to give other people a little bit of what I receive, whether it's encouragement or whether it's acknowledgement, being able to have a conversation. Because although, like, I don't know if you eventually talk to E2 on the phone, but being able to talk to someone like BK and see how much he puts into building up other men, and also trying to take that mantle on and build up other people and allow other people to build you up. I think that really spoke volumes to me. And of course, as you browse the internet and things like that, I don't know at what point it kind of connected that like you were the artist and that you'd painted this picture, because I think I've seen that picture of you and ET and BK with the two portraits side by side, and it's like, oh, okay, that's Ramon. It's like you talk, you go back and forth. Even the picture that you're describing for BK, that's what I used for the episode we did together for the podcast art. And
um,
whenever I saw it, I was like, that has some details about him, because I met him last year in person for the first time. And it's like, it's crazy when you meet someone for the first time in person, that
mm,
you've heard their voice over and over and over, and you've had conversation for hours and hours and hours, and just to see that the painting that you did, the drawing that you did for him, really does justice to kind of express who he is in a way, or in a moment of his life. And also um meeting him in person kind of spoke to, yes, this is the same person through and through, doing his very best to be who he is as a man.
yeah, definitely. I mean, the the line has put me in a position to be a better man, a
Mhm.
better husband, a better father. I mean, I went to the line looking for something. I'm not sure what I was looking for.
Mm.
Probably support, probably opportunity, I don't know.
Mm.
But I got way more than that. You
Yeah.
know, I consider myself a better person. I mean, my situation is, I wouldn't say my situation is the best.
Hmm.
It is certainly not the worst. And it is because just listening, because, it's so funny. Just being human,
Hmm.
you know that you're going through some stuff. And sometimes when whatever you are going through,
Hmm.
there's somebody who is going through something worse than you.
Mm.
It puts it in perspective. It really puts it in a situation where you say, all right, cool. Do I give up?
Hmm.
Do I get upset
Hmm.
or try to find a solution to the problem? And don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
you will be in a mood. You will feel the way how you feel.
Yeah.
But how long do you stay like it? How
Right.
long do you encapsulate yourself in that and just say, hey, let's move forward.
Mm.
And that's what the line really did to, for me. And it put me in a position where I can now encourage somebody else,
Right.
help them do something. Um, because a group of guys poured out in me, so I can now outpour to somebody else.
Hmm.
And so it just changes my whole perspective on life because I might not be making the money I want to make, but am I worse off?
Mm.
Am I in a, you know, I might not be able to say, get up today and say, if you say, Ramon, I need $10,000 from you, I would have say, hey, I can't even start the 10%.
Mm.
But, at some point in time, my bills are sorted out.
Mm.
You know, they're not, I'm not getting kicked out of this place. I'm not, I know things back in Jamaica, I can do this, I can do that.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, okay, I'm not doing this on my own. I have
Hmm.
to obviously be trusting in God. I have to be obviously trusting in the way how he's gonna put me through this path where I can't see. I just have to close my eyes and hold on
Yeah.
and just trust, because I think if you seriously get up every day and worry about money, you're not gonna go anywhere.
No.
You might end up doing stuff where you're not supposed to do because you want it.
Right.
But sometimes you just have to trust the process. You know, I've been with the line, I've gone on the retreat where I met you for the first time, and there are a bunch of stuff just open up. And have I been better since then? 100%.
Mm.
Is there could there be more I could be doing? Of course.
Mm.
But is it worse? No. Yeah. So because it goes back to culture again.
Yeah.
My culture is not the type of culture where you're gonna sit down in a group of men and hug and say, hey, I love you. That's not our culture,
Mm.
and then coming into this culture where I had to kind of reorganize my thoughts, reorganize how I think, not be bashful about certain things and just say, hey, this is it. Just relax.
Mm.
Can do this. You can let go. You can open up to these
Mm.
guys. You know. and I'm still learning to let go a little bit here and there. I'm
Right.
not telling you point blank. I've been just, you know, there's still I'm still a guarded person when it comes to certain things,
Right.
and little by little I'm learning how to not be so guarded, you know, but it really make me more of a people person,
Mm.
not trying to be a people pleaser, but a
Right.
people person. And I'm still gonna, wherever I can get that opportunity to say, hey, this is my art, I'm gonna give you a piece of it. Just to put a smile on your face, I'm gonna do it.
Mm.
Even if I'm not gonna get nothing in return.
Yeah.
And even God said that you're not supposed to give to expect.
Hmm.
You're supposed to give. When it will come back to you at some point in time.
Yeah.
Not worrying when, but it will. And who to tell, it might not be on me, it might be on my children.
Hmm.
So I'm okay with that.
Wow. It's funny. One of the other things I've gotten from the line is a smaller group called the M series.
Mhm.
And one of the things we always do is meet each Sunday, maybe from like we started out at 6 a.m., but I think now we do like maybe 8 to 10 Eastern time. And the thing we always start with is your mindset, like working on cultivating the right mindset to become attractive to what it is you say you want and really separate yourself from the things you want to move away from or the things that aren't serving you. And just reflecting on that this morning, going for a walk, I've been doing that more frequently the past couple of months and trying to spend some of that quiet time to maybe speak out loud, maybe pray, talk to God, or learn to listen to. Is it's given me some moments of clarity. Like one verse I read this morning that kind of stuck out to me was from Proverbs 7, verse 4. And it said, say to wisdom, you are my sister, and say to insight, you are my relative. And I was like, I think I can do something with that to where when I'm either walking, when I'm pondering, or when maybe it feels like everything's going on at the same time. It's like, okay, what if I were to call on wisdom like my sister? And it's like when I think of if wisdom were my sister, she would be like my big sister. That kind of tells me what I need. It might not be what I want, but it's like this is what you need for right now. It's like shape up, like whatever you think you've got to do, whatever you got your hands on or whatever you've got in your hands, you might need to put those down for a minute, step back, like EL said, breathe, take a breath, and pray. And it's like being able to reset your mind has been something that's been helpful for me at the moment because kind of going back to that story of Michelangelo and taking the approach of if I narrow my focus on one thing or like the 20%, like they say in the 80/20 principle, is that 80% of what I'm doing might be kind of helping me keep things up in the air. It might be keeping me busy. It might be making money. It might be somewhat productive. But if I am to stop doing 80% of the things that I'm doing and focus on the 20% or the one thing that's very effective, like going for that morning walk first thing, either before scrolling or without scrolling on my phone and being like, okay, I'm going to go without an expectation of anything. I'm going to be open to everything and unattached to anything so that whatever comes my way, I can welcome it. But if it leaves, I don't feel so, I had to have this thing because this is what I staked all my dreams and hopes on. But with that, it's like moving from the mindset and having the motivation at times would translate to some discipline, which is like I don't have to force myself to do something, but once I've kind of gotten into the routine of saying, okay, I'm going for a walk either in the morning, at lunchtime, or at night, it's that when the time comes and I'm like, oh, I haven't gone for a walk today, I'm not tracking my steps as much. Like sometimes I'll go with my phone that helps me track the steps, other times I won't go. But it's like doing some of that physical motion. It's like I feel better when I've sweated. And other times it's like I've even practiced walking backwards or walking on an incline to where all the time that I've spent going forwards, like going backwards that little bit gives my muscles from like my hamstrings, my quads, my calves, it's strengthening that a little bit. And like a little side note is that even doing stretches that I found from working with a podiatrist or visiting a podiatrist, he mentioned that my Achilles were weak and I'm looking to go get new orthotics or new insoles, get my feet cast, and then basically from there be able to order new inserts and basically replace the ones that I have to give myself more support. But just doing this the simple stretches that he gave me, it's like two stretches, one on each leg, 1 minute each, 4 minutes. It's like that gives me enough stability to kind of walk forward on and to have the approach of like, okay, like I want to have the right mindset. I want to be motivated at times. And then if the motivation doesn't work, I've used enough of it to be disciplined to do that. To now saying, okay, if I'm focusing on this one thing, this is going to be more than enough to bring me the money that I need. And that's going to help me get what it is that I want. But the biggest thing for me has been being able to separate myself from the distractions, so to speak, and kind of looking at things differently to see, okay, like now I'm more clear on who I am as a person. I'm more clear on what my voice sounds like, and even being able to enunciate, use different inflections. Before it was just like monotone because I felt like I had to be kind of like in a box or I had to fit a certain framework to where it's like, okay, so long as I give people like this much, that's where if it's insignificant enough, I won't really be praised too much or I won't be ridiculed too low to where it's like that's going to affect me personally on a personal level. But being able to make these steps, like we talked about, like connecting to the prayer line and having that one thing to be like, okay, like I've met good men and that encourages me and reminds me that I can be a good man. And it's like the better that I am, the more I attract more of that in the world. And the less I have to be anxious, or when I do feel anxious, it's like, man, having this conversation with you and getting to know your story, learn you as a person and like what it is that your dreams and your hopes are. It's very much encouraging to me to be like, okay, I think this is a part of being on the right path.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, yeah, because we have to know where we're going.
Yeah.
We have to trust. And every now and then when you have that, you're walking and it's like you're almost daydreaming about something happening. I think it's God saying, hey, this is what I have for you.
Mm.
Are you willing to hold on and let me move towards it? Are you
Right.
willing to do what I ask you to do?
Hmm.
You know, I said it to you at the start that it was an up and down weekend. It was more rough than usual. And I sat down yesterday in the couch and I just said, God, this week was rough, but it was finished.
Mm.
It might not have been the way how I wanted it to be,
Yeah.
but I'm here. You know, I'm here and I just have to wait on you to see what's gonna happen next week. I
Right.
can't worry about next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I could, but what's gonna happen? It's gonna drive me crazy.
Yeah.
it's gonna put me in a position where I'm not gonna enjoy people, enjoy my family.
Hmm.
In a position where I probably couldn't have spoken to you at the start because I've been just engulfed in what is happening. So yeah, mindset is such a serious thing. We have to change our mindset. My mindset is that, hey, things are not the way I want it to be. What do I do? Do I sit down and worry, or do I just live? And I tell my wife constantly, hey, sometimes we need to just breathe and not worry about it.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you do? Yeah, there's a solution need to be brought up. But at the end of it, really and truly, if you sit down and worry about what is the solution to come,
Hmm.
at the end of it, worrying about it won't cause it to go any further or it won't stop what is happening.
Yeah.
You just have to figure out how you're gonna do it. Um, I try to get that across to my kids sometimes, or I try to shield them. Not, there are things that I will internalize and just deal with myself,
Hmm.
which is not always a good thing, but I know enough and I feel enough that I'm not going to internalize and then hurt myself
Hmm.
because I don't know where to go. I sometimes think I don't want to leave without being what I want to be, or I don't want to leave this earth until I done something what I set out to do.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think it's a fear of dying, but it's just a fear of not getting things done.
Yeah.
You know, I want it to get done. I want to reach that level. I want to see my children be successful. I want to give stuff them to my wife that I can't give her now. I
Hmm.
want to give my parents some level of ease at some point in time. I want to be that type of person who I can say, hey, doing this is going to help a group of people.
Yeah.
Because there's the reality of it, there's a group of people out there who don't know what to do, who's worse off than me,
Hmm.
who don't know where they're going to get their next meal. I know I might not, I know where I'm going to get my next meal. I know where I'm going to sleep,
Hmm.
but somebody out there don't know. They have no clue. I want to be that person to help at some point in time.
Yeah.
So, that's those are the stuff that I am working towards. Try to block out the noise because there is a lot of noise.
Yeah.
But what can we do? We just have to listen. Just block it out. Listen to your voice. Listen to God's voice telling you where to go. Be obedient to Him.
Yeah.
So, that is where I am at. And I'm glad you said about mindset is key. Because you can't do these things without your mindset. You can't go anywhere. You can't achieve these things without changing your how you look on things first.
Hmm.
So, that was key of what you just said.
Thank you. And one thing I've gotten from the line this year, I haven't been on as much because I felt I needed to take a step back. But when I did tune in for one of the presentations that Eddie Butler gave,
Mm,
since he's given it, it was so straightforward and simple. It stuck with me and it stayed with me to where it keeps playing back in my head. I believe he said, whenever you're feeling stress or under pressure, or it just feels like life is a whirlwind, step back, take a breath, and pray.
mhm,
I think those three steps are something that puts a lot of life into perspective, especially if there's a road out here where it's a two-lane road, and on the road everyone kind of has a different idea of what they want to do. Like some people want to drive the speed limit, some want to drive under the speed limit, some want to speed over the speed limit. But it's that being able to get to your destination from point A to point B. When I find myself frustrated, I I try to take into perspective like asking for patience and being able to consider that I'm still moving forward, regardless if it might not be the pace at which I need to move or I desire to move at. But being able to take that breath and kind of have that moment of like reprieve, like being able to step back and get a bigger picture of what's going on, thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm too close, or maybe this person's just not not being considerate, whatever it is. It's like it's either going to pass, or when the opportunity presents itself, I can go on my way. I
Mhm.
think that's pretty good. And as we wrap up, I'd like to ask you a couple questions. If it goes a little long, let me know. But like you mentioned, coming to America recently and growing up most of your life in Jamaica, what was the dream that brought you to America?
The dream, it's crazy because I never had a dream of coming over here.
Mm,
You know, um, my wife had a dream
mhm,
of coming over here, and I said, okay, I'm gonna support you in every way. Whatever you do, I'm gonna follow you
mhm,
wherever you go. And I mean, we discussed and we talked, and I think my short-term dream was more of ensuring that I make it. So if whenever I go back,
mhm,
I have a little bit more impact than what I'm coming from.
mhm,
So that was more of a short-term dream, so to speak.
mhm,
It wasn't a dream to say that I wanted to come over here
mhm,
because even I just thought that I didn't necessarily needed to get a visa to come. I mean, eventually I would, but
mhm,
I tell you, this I'm the type of person like this. The embassy line, I've driven past it so many times where the embassy is, and I see this very long line.
mhm,
People trying to get a visa to come over here. I was never excited to say that I wanted to stay in a line and try and get something like
mhm,
a visa. It was just never my ambition.
mhm,
And I mean, wherever my passport could carry me or send me to, I was just saying, hey, if I need to go away, I'll just do it without a visa. It wasn't anything major, so to speak. But when my wife said, hey, she wants to do this and she wants to do that, sorry, let's do it.
mhm,
I found myself, I think the way how it was done also, I didn't really have to stay in that long line. And I was
mhm.
like, okay, it wasn't as bad as how it was, how I thought it was.
Right.
And then that's when I started to change my mindset about things and just, you know, coming over here and trying to do my thing to be that impact once again.
Mhm. And I guess we've talked about what the experience has been like, the cultural shock, and looking at being able to go back and making plans for that. Has it Did you feel that you had to get over anything to make the logistics to go back home and visit?
Uh, I would say yes. I think culturally, as a people, we expect that when you leave Jamaica and go abroad, when you come back, you need to be a different version of what they saw when you were leaving.
Right.
And maybe in my own thoughts, I haven't done what I said I wanted to get done yet.
Hmm.
So it could be that could be the reason why it's holding me back to
Gotcha.
actually go back.
Right.
Because I want I don't want to go back, and this could be superficial
Mm,
or not, but I still want to go back and how I want to go back better than how I was
mm,
when I left. And I can say in so many ways that I have grown in so many different ways since I left. But
mhm.
for some reason, that little part is kind of holding me back.
I got
But
you.
you know, I'm not. I know. I definitely know that with my wife just wanting to go and stuff like that, and we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And I have to now put aside whatever I thought, whatever feelings I have, and just deal with it.
Yeah.
But you know, here's the difference. I think I've lost a bunch of friends since I've been over here. The
Mhm,
friends argument we were speaking about earlier.
mm,
So going back, my whole circle would even be smaller.
mm,
So then again, I wouldn't have to worry too much to try and impress somebody else. And I think I'm reaching to the age where I don't care what you think anymore.
mhm.
They always say that when you reach a certain age, certain feelings go through the door.
Yeah.
And a lot of mine are going through the door. You know, if you don't like me, all right, fine. You don't think I'm this? Fine.
Yeah.
I don't have to interact with you.
Mm,
If I go, it's definitely for my parents. If I go, it's definitely to just reset my mind,
mhm.
enjoy some stuff that I missed, and come back home and get back on it.
Yeah. I like that. And I think I can identify with some of that because for me, I've only visited Cameroon one time
Mhm.
since coming to America, and it was 18 years after the fact. And now it's been almost 10 years next December since I've visited. And one of the things I kind of got as an insight listening to the story of a gentleman, the book is titled My Seven Black Fathers. He details different men in his life that served as fathers to him through the different lessons that they gave him. Through one of the main ones from his birth father was that for his dad to go back to Nigeria, where he was originally born, there was like a family dynamic where his brother, um, how would you say, like his brother was in a better position than he was, and he wasn't really proud of the fact or happy with the fact that where he landed up in the US wasn't as appealing. Like his brother was well off back in Nigeria and things like that. And coming back, he didn't really feel comfortable stepping into that family dynamic where he's like either the younger brother, where it's like, man, you went abroad, you went to America, you were supposed to have all this knowledge, have all this access. Like when we look from a distance, it looks like you guys got it good there. You eat good, you live good, but it's like coming to America for him was like being there at a later time, having a family strain with um, his wife, not being able to see his son when he's wanting to see them, and just having like not really feeling like a man in the way to where he didn't have control in the things that he wanted in his immediate life, and having to go back to his home country and confronting those things was like is very eye-opening. And I like how he detailed that in his book, really going through how he saw his father and how he kind of interpreted the role that his father played in um his life as a son to his father, but also even how his father dealt with his life, kind of getting over things that were small in someone else's eyes, but it's like I guess we'd say like pain is relative, or like somebody's worst day might not be your worst day, but it's like if it's happening to you, it feels just personal. But being
Mm.
able to see those things, it's as soon as that's why I thought to ask the question. And when you said it, I was like, yeah, it's either a cultural thing or it's like a human thing where it's like there are certain things that feel like they're mental blockers as well as like physical blockers or cultural expectations. And then when you kind of look at it and you look at, okay, maybe I'm not able to provide what it is that's expected of me, but I can still enjoy something out of the experience and just be like, well, if I can't meet your needs, maybe I've gotten better at meeting my own needs, and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's both, probably cultural and human.
Mm,
Yeah, it's both. Because at one set you do miss being there, but do you necessarily want to one, you're saying to yourself, okay, have I who have I let down? Is it myself or is it them?
mm,
And you try to figure that part out, try to
yeah,
tape it together, and it can be rough, but I listened to something the other day that it said that whatever you go through, only you know what you go through.
mm,
Somebody can say, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, or they will never fully understand, no matter what,
right,
you know? Because, like, for myself, I have gone through so many things being here. And on the outset, I know people are looking and saying, hey, things should have been better. You should have been in a better position. You should have this.
yeah,
But you're not in my shoe. You don't know what is going on.
right,
You assume that this is the situation, but it isn't, until you walk a mile in somebody's shoe, you'll never understand.
yeah,
You know? And that can be rough sometimes, but going back to mindset, do you allow the noise to dictate or be blinders
mhm,
and push you in places that you don't want to go?
mhm,
Or do you take away the blinders, do what you need to do? And at the end of it, only you can determine if you did well or not. Nobody else can tell you if you did well or not. The only person who's gonna tell me if I did well or not is God Himself when He come back from earth and say, well done. Other than that, you can't tell me that.
right.
You can't be the judge of it. Because there's a lot of judges out there. There
Very
is
true.
a lot of judges they're saying, oh, yes, yeah, can't listen to them.
Right. Oh,
And
awesome.
I tell people that every day. Yeah, sometimes you have to not listen to somebody else. Listen to what is inside. Listen to what is in your mind. Sometimes when you go through stuff and you're trying to make a decision, and if your heart say one thing and your mind say one thing, sometimes you just You just have to be quiet. Just like what you says, be still, pray, and just listen. Don't get up. No, no. Just hold on. Just be quiet. And it always come through. And sometimes we determine that the things that we want so badly, we're
Mm,
going to cut out all our going up here and all our going up here just to get that and say this is why we need it needs to be done. When technically we have to listen a little bit more keener
mm,
because sometimes that route is not the way you need to go. But God would allow you to go to that route just to make his point.
mm.
And then you have to start all back over again where you should go.
Yeah,
Only if you did just listen and trust. That's the biggest thing, trusting and listening. Do I? Because at some point in time, I had to trust when I was leaving Jamaica. Here's it. I'm leaving a good job,
mm,
stable job, come over to the unknown.
mm.
And up to this day, I'm still trusting
Yeah,
because I could have thrown up my hands and said, I'm going back. But I had to look beyond all of that and cut out the noise once again because somebody will always have something to say.
very true.
Mhm.
Well, how can people get in touch with you, whether they want to meet you or get a personal art piece made? How would they do that?
Well, right now I'm really just on Instagram. Um, Social media is like a full-time job. And I'm trying my best. Social media is not my forte, but I'm really trying to put out stuff. But they can always go on social media and
Mhm,
see my stuff. Charcoal portraits by Ramon,
mm,
and you know they can contact me there. Just DM me, and you know, I have not posted my rate sheet,
mm.
but in the event that they need it, I'll always send it to them. That's not a problem.
Gotcha. I think you've given a great account of yourself with this chat. And I remember the first time I reached out to you and you're like, I don't know. I don't know. But it's always funny to me because it's like the more we talk, the better we get to know each other. And it's like being able to take some time and share that with more people. It always makes these conversations worthwhile for me because it it informs me of things I would never know. And
Mhm.
it's really setting aside a specific time to say, hey, we're going to talk, the two of us, for this time. Is no agenda really coming into it. And there's so much more that I've gotten out of this conversation than anything I would have thought going into it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, most of all, I appreciate you even asking me to come on this thing. It's a podcast. I mean, hey, when you first asked me, I'm like, ooh. A little self-doubt came in. And I'm like, well, all right, but uh, as you said, and I even remember asking you, how should I prepare for it? And you're like, just sleep. I'm like, all right, you
Easy
know.
enough.
Just all right, cool. We do that. We're gonna do that. I mean, it's I can truly say that the next time you probably ask me to come back on, which I hope you do,
Mhm.
is you know, it will be a even better, give you a more updated version of myself,
Yeah.
not just, you know, now you're gonna be speaking about the event that I did,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And, you know, even just when we're wrapping up, but we still had, and I haven't even got in some of the surprised events that I did, but that is for a different time. And, I know that there's more to come.
Oh
I
yeah.
know that there's a lot more in store. You know, I know that it's just not just it. This is just not just where it's at right now,
Yeah.
and I'm definitely working towards that. And you know, and in the same breath, I know there's a lot more in store for you and your podcast and your endeavors, and just you know, support and send in blessings and just, know that this thing, what you're doing, it's gonna blossom in so many ways that you're not even going to imagine.
Yeah.
You know, it's gonna hit you, in certain ways where, you know, you step back and say, whoa. And that was what is in store for you.
Mm.
So, in we're gonna talk at some point in time in the future, and you're gonna look back, and then I'm gonna look back in your background. I'm like, whoa, you have a new set.
You got a picture or two up there.
And you're gonna say, whoa, whoa.
You hear
Oh,
me?
you froze
There
a
you are.
while.
I think I'm back.
You froze a while ago.
Oh, okay.
You're back. Mhm,
Gotcha. Well, let me close you out with this question from the first question I asked you.
mhm.
Are you still who you said you were?
Am I still who I said I am?
Hmm.
Yes, I would definitely say yes. Big work in progress, but yes.
Yeah.
You know, I was in IT for many years, and one of the things what we usually when we install in anything, I'm coming from the days of Windows 3.4.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you remember those days.
No.
I'm coming from the days of DOS when we
Wow,
didn't have no interface.
man.
And you used to have the disk,
Yeah, I remember those. Like the
floppy disk.
floppies. Yeah, I did
And,
grow up on
and
those.
when you install in Windows, and you reach, you're supposed to have five discs where you will prompt you and say, pull it out and put the number two in. And, you know, I'm working on that. I'm probably at number three.
Mm.
I'm hoping that this doesn't have any bad sectors, you know, and hopefully that the process bar goes tick,
Yeah,
tick. And, every time it says, pull out that one, put the other one in, I'm there. So I'm that work in progress. The processing bar is still going across.
yeah,
That's me.
I like it. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Ramon. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and for sure we'll do it again online and offline.
Definitely, definitely respect. I
Respect.
appreciate it, man. All right, take care.
You too.